Hello Internet, welcome back to Tromsø Twilight. This is the channel where I, Vincent, speak into the digital abyss about books, movies, music that I find interesting, that I enjoy, or a combination of the two. And today we will be talking about a combination of two things: Hamlet, the Shakespeare play, and Hail to the Thief, the 2003 album by the English rock band Radiohead. I was in Manchester this last weekend, travelled there specifically to see this performance of Shakespeare's classic tragedy Hamlet, haunted by the music of this Radiohead album from the early 2000s. It was put on by the Royal Shakespeare Company and it was adapted and directed by Christina Jones and Stephen Hoggett, who collaborated on the adaptation and on the direction. They also collaborated with the maybe the lead singer of the band Radiohead, also one of the principal songwriters, on adapting the music for the performance. Now, I'm going to assume that most of the people watching this video know the Shakespeare play and know the Radiohead album, but for those who only know one of those two things, I'm just going to quickly summarize. The Radiohead album, Hail to the Thief, it came out after two of their more acclaimed records, Kid A and Amnesiac, and it came out in 2003 at the height of a kind of anti George Bush Jr. sentiment in the context of the Iraq War. It wasn't a very explicitly political album, but Tom York was at the time very concerned with the global situation and with politics, more so than he appears to be today. And the album was called Hail to the Thief as a reference to George Bush stealing the election. There are lots of things about like power, abuse of power throughout the record. It was also more of a rock album than the two albums before it, but it still kind of incorporated some electronic elements. I remember at the time it came out finding it kind of disappointing, but with the years, I feel that some of their best songs are on that album, though I consider it to be a very patchy record. Hamlet, for those who don't know, is an Elizabethan tragedy about the Prince of Denmark, whose father is dead at the beginning of the play, and he very early in the play meets the ghost of his father, who informs him that Hamlet's uncle has killed his father, and this uncle has also married Hamlet's mother. So he's living in this sort of almost incestuous situation where his father's murderer, who is also his father's brother, is now in a relationship with his mother. His mother is named Gertrude, and his uncle is named Claudius. He also has a best friend called Horatio. Now, Hamlet in this play was played by Samuel Blenkin, and he was absolutely incredible. He put on a performance that was both very moving and soulful, but also funnier than I've often seen Hamlet. Like, there were lines where he was really able to bring out the comedy in the original writing. You may know this actor from the Black Mirror episode Lock Henry. I remembered him from Black Mirror, but I couldn't place which episode he was in. I had to look it up. But he was really magnetic as Hamlet. So great. Horatio was played by Albie Baldwin. This is interesting because I don't know if Albie Baldwin is a woman or if this person is non-binary, possibly. Very androgynous, wearing a skirt, quite femme. The chemistry between Horatio and Hamlet in this production is off the charts. So beautiful, and it brings out the tragedy in a way that really is like heartbreaking. There's like seems to be a genuine love between these two people, like a sort of loyal, loving friendship that is truly heartbreaking in the context of the play. Hamlet's love interest, whose heart he breaks during the play, is a character called Ophelia, and this character was played by Amy Tredrea. This also is such an incredible performance. So early in the play, there's a scene where the two of them are dancing together to the music from There, a song from the Radiohead album. And this dance performance, it was like so like charming and beautiful. And knowing that Ophelia will die during the course of the play, it was also undercut with this like foreboding tragedy. Uh, just to say some other names of the actors in this play because they deserve it. Hamlet's mother, Gertrude, is played by Claudia Harrison. Incredible performance. And Claudius, the uncle, played by Paul Hilton. My friend Bill, who was at the performance with me, said that this is the most evil Claudius he's ever seen. And he teaches Hamlet, so he's seen a lot of versions of the play. Now, I wasn't 100% sure what to think about this play before I saw it. I've talked before on this channel about how I'm quite skeptical of nostalgia. I didn't want this to be a thing where it was like people who used to like Radiohead were getting a kind of fan service. It could very easily be a slightly embarrassing kind of Mamma Mia or like We Will Rock You situation, but with Shakespeare, which would have been awful. But very early in the performance, it became clear that one, this really is a Shakespeare performance. Like the play and the narrative of the play and the feeling of the play is not just central; it's elevated. It's increased in intensity. And the storytelling aspect, like everything that happens, serves the narrative and the atmosphere of the play. They've created an environment that's very minimalist, almost like Brechtian, lines on the stage, uh, very few props. There's a kind of mezzanine, there's a stage area where they perform their lines and soliloquies and dialogues, where they dance during parts of the performance, where there's a mime section. They're also at times up on this kind of mezzanine area, acting to and fro, back and forth to one another. It's in a kind of amphi situation. We were seated towards the side, and the band, because there is a band with a drummer and a bass player and a guitarist and at least two synthesizers, they are behind plexiglass windows behind the stage, sort of semi-dark, so you can see them, but they're not intrusive. And then at times when there are vocals from the songs that are being used, two singers emerge from these dark doorways onto this kind of mezzanine balcony with microphones, a man and a woman, and they sing sections of the songs that, and they are used like a Greek chorus. They're very clearly used to kind of comment on or to augment what's happening within the narrative of the play. All of the actors danced incredibly well. Parts of it, as my friend Claire pointed out, were kind of almost Pina Bausch influenced. Some of the parts reminded me a little bit of Martha Graham. It was quite ambitious choreography, and they really, really pulled it off. Also, at one point, Hamlet was singing. He was singing Scatterbrain. If you know the song from the album, it's a kind of ballad. And he was wandering around singing the song. And there's a line in the song which is, "Any fool can easy dig a hole. I only wish I could fall in." And at the point where he got to the end of that line, the song stopped and he was standing by a grave. It was like goosebump material. But the most beautiful song in the whole performance for me was a song that's called Sailing to the Moon, which is the third song from the album. And it's also a very beautiful melodic song. At the point where Ophelia was grieving and on the edge of madness, she was wandering around singing this song while her family were watching her and asking each other, how long has she been like this? She was like singing this song in her own world. But at the end of the song, she started to sing lines from the play, and my body was shaking with emotion at this point. I was very close to crying. Another scene that really stood out in the play for me was Ophelia's death. This is something that very often happens off stage in Hamlet. It's implied that she drowns herself, but maybe she drowns because she's become insane with grief. But in this play, they actually showed her death. They showed her increasingly losing contact with reality. So she was wandering around on the stage, and there was kind of water type lighting projected onto the back wall of the stage, and she was reciting sections of Hamlet's to be or not to be soliloquy, but in a very emotionally overwhelmed, fragmented, broken way. And her voice was being sampled, and it was echoing and kind of forming this sound bed underneath her lines. And I found this extremely moving and disturbing because it was like bringing Hamlet's soliloquy about life and death and considering dying back. But when Ophelia was saying it, it wasn't just considering living or dying, it was like she'd already made the decision. And I found this really, really harrowing, but also really moving. Other scenes worth mentioning are the dumb play. The play within a play was done as this kind of very strange mime that was really effective. There was a section where Claudius was doing a dance that was where he almost had like a Doctor Strangelove kind of hand. I think this is when he was trying to send Hamlet away or get him killed. And he was the guy who played Hamlet was up on the balcony singing. I can't remember which song, but so moving, so excellent. A scene towards the end where Hamlet was describing his relationship to Horatio was beautifully moving and brought out some lines of the play that I've never thought about before. And the whole closing section in the fifth act was just wild. The most brutal version of this play I think I've seen. And really bringing out the kind of Greek tragedy aspect of the play. There's really only one thing I take issue with in the whole performance, and that is that they, as part of their very minimalist scenography, had Fender guitar amplifiers placed around the stage, which the performers moved around and they stood on them and they used them to signify different kind of objects or to create different levels on the stage. Now, I think having these movable boxes is a great idea. It works really well. But making them Fender guitar amps, it's the only thing in the play that for me had that kind of tacky, like reference to rock and roll indie music. I really could have done without that. I think it was slightly off. It also brought the play out of this weird dream space that it otherwise seemed to take place in. And if anybody in the production is watching this video, which I very much doubt, but if you are, consider dropping the Fender amps and replacing them with black boxes if you transfer to the West End. A last thought from me is that I had forgotten how almost every third line in Hamlet contains a line or a group of words that has become the name of an album or the name of a book or an idiom that people use all the time. So it's really strange to hear them all together, and really beautiful to see this play done in a way that again makes it living, reminds you how relevant it is. All of these themes about grief, about family, about violence, about jealousy, about loneliness, about sanity and insanity, about power. And I feel like it was an amazing thing to see this record that this band Radiohead made in 2003 get a second chance. It was like they were able to go back and take melody lines, riffs, chord progressions, bits of arrangements that were great originally, but like decontextualize them and lift them up to give them a second chance to be something even better. That's it for me on Hamlet Hail to the Thief. It is an unqualified success in my opinion. If you get the opportunity to see it, please do see it. I really hope it transfers to London because then people from other countries are more likely to see it, and also probably a larger number of people who are watching this video. If you've seen it, let me know what you think. If you know the album and you'd like to talk about that, jump in the comments. If you want to say something about the play, or if you want to tell me about a version of the play that you've seen, also please jump in the comments. I really enjoy the conversations that I've been having through this channel. That's it for me for now. Thanks very much, and see you soon.